Hey everybody, today I'm going to be showing you how to pass data between table view controllers. Now I did a similar video on this on how to pass data between regular view controllers, but in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to do it between table view controllers, and it's a lot more complicated. So if you guys want to go over to my website and download the source files yourself so you can at least follow along to what I'm doing, then go ahead and do that. It'll be the first link down in the description down below. But anyway guys, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so this is what we're trying to accomplish inside of this tutorial. So we have a first, second, third, and fourth inside of a table view. And then inside of that, you click first. So that passes along an array over to our next table view. And then we click on that, and then that passes along over to a text view that we create later on. So this works along third, and then it's all different according to which table view you click on. Alrighty guys, so let's go ahead and open up Xcode and let's create a new Xcode project. And here we're going to make this a single view application, and the product name I'm just going to call mine table view. And the language will be set to Swift and devices will be set to iPhone. Now click next and create. Alright, now let's make this a bit bigger. And first thing we want to do is actually go into our main.storyboard, and we're just going to delete this view controller that we added, and then add a navigation view controller right down here in your bottom right. Add a navigation view controller onto our scene. And right here it automatically gives you the navigation view controller, which basically the navigation view controller just makes it able to makes it easier to navigate throughout multiple views that you created on your scene. And then let's go ahead and add another table view controller like so. And let's also right click or control click and drag from our cell right here over to our second to our second table view controller that we just created, and say the selection segue as show. Alright, so now anytime you're supposed to click this cell, it's automatically going to pass over to this cell over here. And then we're actually going to add one more view, which will be our view controller. And here we're just going to basically pass along some text from our second table view controller. So go ahead and right click or control click and drag from our cell over to our view controller and say show. Alright, now let's go ahead and go into our view controller.swift. And first thing we want to do is actually change the class to be called first table view controller, and we're going to change the super class to be UI table view controller. Alright, so basically what we're trying to do here is we're just basically making a class that will be able to be called specifically on our main.storyboard, and we call that onto, say we have this table view right here. This will be called our first table view controller, and now anything you put inside of this class will be automatically utilized inside of that first table view controller. Alright, now let's go ahead and add an array onto our scene. And actually I'm just going to change our view controller.swift file name to be first table view controller.swift, like so. And let's go ahead and add a view did load. What am I saying? We need to add an array onto our scene first. So just go ahead and say var first table array equals, and then open bracket, close bracket, and inside of those brackets we want to say string, and then after that just go ahead and add open parentheses, close parentheses. And now basically what we did, we created an array of strings. So now let's go ahead and add stuff into this array. So let's just say first table array equals open bracket, close bracket, and inside of that just say open parentheses, open quotation marks, close quotation marks. I keep saying parentheses for some weird reason. And so now we have open quotation marks, close parentheses, close quotation marks, and now we just want to put first and then say comma, open quotation mark, close quotation mark, second, then another, and we'll just call this third. So right there. So now we have an array filled with these three objects inside of here, which are all strings. And now we're going to basically count these, so we have this certain amount of cells that are created onto our main.storyboard via this array. So just go ahead and say table view, and we want to say number of rows in section. Now inside of that code we just want to say return first table array dot count. And then right down here we want to add another All right, right down here we want to add another function that is going to basically hold our cell and create that cell according to how many of these arrays that we have. So just go ahead and say table view cell for row at index path, and then now we want to create our cell. So just say var cell equals self.tableview tableview.deq. It's DEQUEUE, and then it automatically fills it in for you. And make sure you have this one that says deq reusable cell with identifier string for index path, ns index path. And then just tab all that in. And for our identifier, you can basically call this whatever you want, but I'm just going to call mine cell. And also just make sure that you have everything capitalized the way you want it, because this will be the exact way you will print it inside of your main.storyboard. All right, so now go for index path, and we'll just say index path. And the way I'm getting index path is because it's called right in here inside of our function right here. It says cell for row at index path, so it's creating this cell at the index path. All right, now say as UI table view cell. All right, now go ahead and to say return cell. So now we have the cell and it's created, and now we can actually utilize this cell inside of our table view. And what is this error? I have an invalid character. All right, now let's go ahead and go down here. It's not giving me any errors anymore, except for some reason this is still showing up, but it should be gone. All right, now let's go ahead and go to our main.storyboard. And first thing we want to do is actually name our table view. So go over here to our identity inspector, and we want to change the class to be our first table view controller. All right, now let's go ahead and build and run. And actually, we're not going to get anything on here. It's just going to give you a black screen. So actually, the way to fix this would be to go to your navigation controller right here and make sure that you have isInitialViewController selected inside of your attributes inspector. So make sure you have isInitialViewController selected. Now go ahead, build and run. And now we should get these things filling up our place. And actually, I forgot one more thing. We need to go to our main.storyboard and go to our first table view, and we forgot to call this cell. So this cell now needs to be the identifier cell. And as you can remember, this is the same thing that you created right here. So make sure it's capitalized the way you created yours. So if you made it first cell or second cell or whatever, just make sure it's capitalized, and it's the exact same thing for that. So now we can just go back to our main.storyboard, and actually if we build and run this right now, nothing is going to show up onto our scene just because we haven't really added anything onto this cell. So first thing we want to do is just click on our cell, and we want to change the style to basic, and then go to our first table view controller, and we want to return inside of this right here where we create the cell and we return the cell. Basically, the returning of the cell is gathering everything right before that cell and placing that into the cell. So we want to add some text to the cell. We want to say cell.textLabel.text, and it actually would be question mark dot text, and say equals first table array, and then say open bracket close bracket index path dot row. So basically we're grabbing this table array, and then we're grabbing certain elements according to which row we are using inside of the app. So now let's go ahead and build and run, and now we should get things building onto our scene. And as you can see, we have first, second, and third. And now when you click on these, it goes over to the second table view controller that we created, but we have nothing showing on the second table view at the moment. So let's go ahead and do that. So go over to our second table view, our main.storyboard real quick, and actually we want to create a new file. So go up here and say File, New, File, and here we're going to make it a Swift file, and this is going to be our second table view. And create I could call that second table view controller actually, so we keep consistency. All right, now let's go over to our second table view controller.swift, and we want to create a class. And inside of this class, first thing we actually want to do is import our UI kit. So not inside of this class, we want to put that right up here where it says import foundation. Just go right underneath that or above it. We just want to import this UI kit, so just say import UI kit. And basically this UI kit just allows us to utilize things that are inside of our main.storyboard inside of this file that we just created. All right, so now go to your class, and we're just going to call this second table view controller. And it is of the super class. Doesn't need it to be spelled properly, but I like it too. All right, now it needs to be in the super class of UI table view controller. All right, now this needs to be in the superclass of UI table view controller. And then we go to properties and methods, and here we should have a viewDidLoad method as normal, and just say super.viewDidLoad. All right, so now when the view loads, we're going to plug some things in there later on, but not at the moment. First thing we actually want to do is go to our main.storyboard, and we want to create call this second table view that we created right here, and just go to your identity inspector and change the class to second table view controller like so. And now go over to our second table view controller.swift, and we want to first create a variable, and this variable is going to be an array. So we're going to make this second array equals open bracket, close bracket. And inside of that, we want to make this a string array. All right, so basically, as we did before, we're creating an array of a string, and then we're actually going to pass this array via our first table view. So now we're going to pass that array, and then we're going to load that up into this array, and then we're going to load that up into our cell. So let's go ahead and do that. Right down here, first thing we need to do is say table view self row at index path, and then right above that we want to say table view number of rows in section, and then we say return a second array dot count. And then right down here we want to create our cell again, so this is just like before. Say var cell equals self dot table view dot dec reusable cell with identifier string for index path. So the string, we'll just call this second cell, and you could actually just call this cell like we did the first one, but I'm just going to keep things the same. I mean different. All right, so for index path, and again index path comes from up here. All right, now go down here and we're going to return this cell. And then we're also going to add things onto this cell first. Oh, wait, no, we actually right up here we want to say as UI table view cell. All right, now that we have all that up and running, let's go ahead and go to our main.storyboard again, and we want to change our second table view controller cell to be a basic cell. So go up to your attributes inspector and change the style to basic. And then we're also going to change the reuse identifier to be second cell. And remember, that is the exact same that we created right over here. So just make sure it's the same or else it won't work properly. All right, now inside of here, say cell.textLabel.text, and it's going to add that question mark, equals, and say second array, and then say index path dot row. All right, and now that we have that there, go to your first table view controller right here. And actually we want to create a new file. So say file, new file, and we're going to make this a Swift file. and this is going to be our second table. These are going to be the elements that are passed along onto our second table. All right, now let's go over here and just say import, or actually we don't need to import anything. Go down here and we want to say struct, and we're going to call the structure name second table. And this is going to be the properties and methods. We're going to add a variable of a string and also a variable of a string for the picture. So just go ahead and say var So just go ahead and say var. This will be our title, so we can actually call this var second title equals, and then we're going to make this a string. Then go right down here, and we also need to create another title that will be our picture. So say var pic equals string, and you could make this a UI image, but I like doing it a string and then passing that along as a UI image later on. So now let's go ahead and, oh, actually we don't want this to be equals, we want this to be colon, like so. So now we're creating a second title with this, which is a string, and a pic, which is a string. So now go down here to your second table view controller.swift, or actually your first table view controller.swift, and we want to add elements onto this array that we just created, or this structure that we created, and we're going to turn this later on into an array. So say var so just go ahead and say var second array equals, and then say open bracket, close bracket, and inside of that we want this to be the same as our structure right here. So just like we're doing it with a string, we're actually going to convert our structure that we created into an array. So now go back to our first table view controller.swift, and we want to say inside of these brackets a second table, and then right after that go open parentheses, close parentheses. Alright, so now that we created that array, let's go ahead and add stuff onto this array that we created. So just say second array equals open bracket, close bracket, and inside of those brackets we want to say second table, and then say open parentheses, and then it should add all these things onto your thing automatically. If it doesn't, just type it in just the way you see it. Alright, and inside of that, just first string, right, our second title, our first string, and actually I just remembered we actually don't want this to be just a string. We want our second title to be an array. So go up to your second table.swift, not your second table view controller, just your second table.swift, and we actually want to encompass our string inside of brackets. Alright, so now this is now an array. So go back to your first table view controller right over here, and now say open bracket, close bracket, and now we're going to make this an array. So this will be our array of items that are picked when we pick our first item. So when we click this first item, this is going to be what is loaded up into our array, or our table. So go over here, and now we're going to add, we're just going to say first, second, and then I guess we could say first, and then second, first, and then third, first. My naming them is just basically, this is going to be the first array that's going to be picked. So we're going first, second, third, first, and then we're going to add a picture, which is going to be named later on. So we're not going to worry about that just right now. So now just go ahead and highlight our second table that we just created right here, and add a comma right after it. And now we have the second part that we have. So now for our second array that's going to be loaded up when we click this second, we're just going to call this first, So this is actually going to be first, second. Sorry if the naming's getting a bit confused. You can call these whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. Second, second, and then third, second. And then we need one more array for our third array, which is third. All right, so now this will be first, third, second, third, and third, third. And then our picture we will name later. All right, so now when we build and run this, we're not going to be loading anything up, so let's go ahead and do that. So right down here, we want to add the prepare for segue function. And inside of that, we want to say, all right, so now we need to create this variable which will hold our destination view controller, which is our second table view controller in this case. So now we just need to say var dest view controller, or destination view controller, equals segue dot destination view controller as UI. All right, first thing we need to do after this, after we create our destination view controller, we need to add an ns index path. So just say ns index, we want to say var index path colon ns index path equals self dot table view dot index path for selected row. And add an exclamation point at the end. All right, now after that, we have our index path created. So now anytime we click on one of these, on one of our cells inside of our table view, it's going to automatically count which of those table views it is, and now we're going to actually use that to pass along data. So first thing we need to do is say var second table array 2. Basically, this array is just going to be able to, this is the array that you're going to pass over something from. So we first need to basically append, basically grab this, and we're going to make this the it's a really complicated thing to explain, but it's a second table array 2, and then we're just going to call this a style of second table, which is actually this structure that we created right over here. So we're making this a structure, and then we're going to back to our first table view controller, and then we're going to make this a structure, and then right after that we want to say second table array 2 equals second array, and then open bracket, close bracket, and say index path dot row. So now we're making this a structure, and then we're going to make this structure equivalent to that of the structure that we created before, which is right up here. So we're making it equivalent to this array, and now we're actually going to grab elements from that array, and we're going to pass it over to our second table view controller. So just say destination view controller dot second array equals second table array 2 dot second title. And now this is going to be passed along onto our next thing. So let's go ahead and build and run this, and it should work properly. So now we have first, and when we click on it, it takes us to first, second, third, first. And we go back, second, it should go first, second, third, second. Go back, third, and again. It works properly every time. And just to show you that you can add more things on, let's go ahead and do that. So just say comma, open parenthesis, open quotation mark, close quotation mark, fourth. And now we have a fourth thing. So inside of the second array right here, we actually want to add, I guess, another thing like this, and we could just say first, fourth. We don't really want to care about any of these other ones. There doesn't need to be an exact 3 in every one of these arrays that we created. So now let's go ahead and build and run this, and now it grabs that, and we have a fourth, and when we click on that, it takes us to first, fourth. So it's very simple and easy to add more things on in this way of doing things. So that's why I do this way. You can do other ways, such as basically grabbing the number, and then you can pass along according to which number it is. But this is a lot easier. I guess it's sort of the same idea, but it's a lot simpler in the way that I can add to it. Alright, never mind, I changed my mind. We're not going to do anything with the pictures this time, so just go ahead and delete anything where it says picture. We will play with pictures later on in a later tutorial, just not this one, okay? Alright, so now we should have everything working properly. And let's go to our second table.swift and just delete that variable pic. Alright, now we don't have to worry about adding pictures onto our thing. And lastly, next thing we're just going to do is make it so we can actually pass a lot of text over to our view controller right here. So go ahead and do that. So let's go to our second table view controller right here. And we want to, again, just add a prepare for segue. And then we're going to add our destination view controller, and just to make things quick, we can just go over here and just copy this and paste it. And actually we're going to change this because we don't have a view controller specifically set up for our view controller that we created. So just go ahead and say File, New, File, and then we're going to make this a Swift file, and we're going to say, and we're going to call this view controller. And create, and now we have our view controller.swift, and now we're going to import our UI kit, and then say class, and our class name will be our view controller, and it is of the superclass UI view controller. Then we have our properties, which is just view did load, and this is going to be very simple. So we don't really want to add anything else other than that. So just go over to our second table view controller right here, and now we're going to make this as our destination view controller as our view controller that we just created right up here. First string equals string. And now we have just created a string. And we also need to add our parentheses at the end. Forgot about that. Alright, now let's go ahead and go to our second table view controller.swift right down here. And now we have this destination view controller. So now say dest view controller dot first string equals, and basically we can pass anything over that we want, and you could make this equal to an array, but I'm just going to go simple here and just type in some random numbers or random letters, and I will show you how to do an array in just a minute, but right now I'm just going to show you how to at least pass this over if you were just going to do one string. Alright, so let's go ahead and go to our second table, our view controller.swift, and go to our main.storyboard, and go to our assistant editor right here, and we want to right click and drag, and actually we haven't added anything into our view controller, so we actually want to say text view. We want to actually add a text view onto our view controller that we created. So let me find that. There's going to be a lot of edits in this video. Alright, so click and drag a text view onto our scene, like so. And now we have this text view. And we're going to add that string that we created from on our view controller.swift over to this text view. So go over here and change the class to our view controller right here. And now click on here, and now we should be taken to our view controller.swift file, but we're not, so let's go manual and just go to our view controller.swift file. Alright, now right click or control click and drag, and we want to insert an outlet. In this outlet name, we're just going to call this text view. Pretty straightforward. Alright, and we want to go to our view did load, and we want to say text view dot text equals first string, or whatever string you created right up here. And now let's go ahead, build and run, and stop. Now we have our first, and now it passes along that same thing no matter which array you click right now. Now this can be changed. I really don't want to worry about on any of these arrays right now. But we're going to do it anyway. So let's go ahead and go to our second table viewcontroller.swift file right here. And the hardest thing about this is actually telling which of the arrays that were clicked on beforehand. So we could easily just pass an array that says for these first 3 strings, but we don't know how many strings are in each of these things. So we actually need to go back to our first table view controller, and we need to add one more of these structures. So let's go ahead and just say file, new, file, and this is going to be our last file that we create, and this is going to be third structure, or third view. We'll just call it third view. And now we have this third view, and we're going to create a struct with the name of third view, and we're going to add an array. So just say var third view array equals equals open bracket close bracket a string array. All right, and then open parentheses close parentheses. All right, now let's go back and go to our second table view controller.swift right down here, or actually our first table view controller.swift right down here, and we want to add an array inside of this. So now we were doing exactly as this is done. So with our first view controller, we want to pass that along. It's a very, very complicated process, so I hope you guys are understanding everything that I'm doing and why I'm doing everything. So let's just go ahead and continue on. And this, we're just going to add, first thing we actually want to do is create a variable up here. So we're going to say var third array equals open bracket close bracket, and this is going to be our structure that we just created. So this is going to be third view, and then open parentheses close parentheses. All right, now we're actually going to start adding elements onto this third array. So let's go ahead and do that. Say third array equals open bracket close bracket, and inside of this array we were going to add our third view, and then say open parentheses, and it should automatically give you this option to say third view array, and inside of this string array that we have right here, this is going to be our third view array. Now basically all the thinking of this is it's pretty much the exact same thinking as this. So we're just trying to pair up this with this. So first, when first is clicked, it's automatically going to load up these 3 arrays. But the problem is we're actually only doing one of these values per one of these arrays. So basically, I would have to add, since we have 3 objects inside of this array right here, I'm going to have to add 3 objects inside of this right here. And this is just going to be, I'm just going to write in random stuff right now just because I don't feel like typing. So right here we have our first one, and this is going to be paired alongside with this one. So just make sure they match up according to which ones you want to be passed along with. So right here we have this one, and then we're going to create a second array that's going to pair up with this array that we have up here. So just go ahead and copy and paste, add a comma, copy and paste that right after, add another comma, and now we have all these paired up. So this is three objects, so just make sure you have the exact same amount of objects per array that you use right here. And this is the hard part, just keeping track of everything is part of the really hard part of doing this whole series of doing everything. So you just need to make sure that all your arrays are paired up properly, or else your app will not work properly. So now we have this one paired up with this one, this one, this one, and the last thing we have is only the fourth view, which only has one of these. So now anytime we're going to be able to click on our first fourth, it's going to pass over this, or our first third is going to pass over this, and so on. So that is the logic behind all of that. All right, now let's go down here, and now we actually need to pass this along to our destination view controller, and just say dest view controller dot, and we actually need to go over to our second table view controller right now, and we're going to add another array. So this will be second answer array. We'll call that, and just say equals open bracket, close bracket. We'll say string, and then after that say open parentheses, close parentheses. And then just go right down here. I'm sorry, and then go back to our first table view controller right here, and say destination view controller dot second table array. I'm sorry, second answer array. For some reason it's giving me an error, so let me see what that error is. Okay. Now it's not giving me that error anymore, so just go destination view controller dot second answer array equals, and this is going to be equal to this array right up here. So again, we need to create basically what we did up here. We need to create another structure that's going to be the same as second table, and then we're going to assign that array to our index path.row right here. And so yeah, let's just continue on and say var second answer array 2, and then do a quotation or colon, and this is going to be equal to our second, or whatever we created right up here. So let's go over here and just, it's a third view. So this is actually, we can actually call this third answer array 2. Our third answer array is equal to third view. Then after that we say third answer array is equal to, and then it's this pair of arrays that we created right up here. So it is going to be third array, because that is the array that we are using right there. So third array, and then open bracket, close bracket, and this is going to be at index path.row. And now for this destination view controller, we're going to pass along this value over to it. So we're just going to say destination view controller dot second answer array equals third answer array, like so. All right, now let's go over to our second table view controller down here, and this is going to be our destination view controller right here. So we're actually going to add this along to this string value that we have right here. So we want to say a destination view controller dot first string is equal to second answer array. And this is just this array right up here. So let's go ahead, build and run this, and I'm just going to show you what happens. And it's giving us this value right here. So okay, I forgot to fix something down here. So in our destination view controller dot second answer array, we want to say third answer, it is equal to third answer array dot third view array. So we're passing along this array over to our second table view controller. And now the second answer array is going to be right down here. So first thing we actually want to do is just, we're going to cheat a little bit. So just go to your first table view, and we're going to copy that and this index path.row right up there, and we're going to pass that along to our prepare for segue in our second table view controller. So in our first table view controller, we're just passing along that same value that creates that index path that allows us to pick from the segues, from the arrays. Now we have this var index path, and then this is equal to self.tableview.index path for selected row. Okay, so we have that. And now we need to say this second answer array is equal to index path.row. So now we're picking a specific object out of this second answer array that we created right up here. Now let's go ahead and build and run, and we should get this to work. All right, so we have our first, and now we click on that, and then we have first, and that passes along ASD, KJIF, whatever. And now we pass along to fourth, and now everything worked perfectly fine, and you can match this along with anything else. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. It really took a long time for me to make this. So yeah, thanks. That's it for this tutorial. If you guys enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button down below. If you guys want to see more tutorials from me, be sure to subscribe. Anyway guys, that's it for this tutorial, and I will see you in the next one.